Welcome everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me as always is
the other Cam. Galactus did nothing.
as well as
this is Josh Von Doom.
And as always, keeping us honest,
Professor Doom. I'll stick with the Professor Doom Galactus. That's what I am. I'm the professor that brings the doom.
How you get both Doom Galactus?
Think about it. That's all I'll say.
So greedy.
And if you haven't noticed, we are back. We are talking about Fantastic Four. And
no. Fantastic Four.
Leave it to Michael
G. Jesus. Sorry, we're talking about the Fantastic Four First Steps, Marvel's first family. Their latest offering. Fantastic Four is a very interesting ride to get here. Just to preface this before we even get into it. Fantastic Four for Marvel as a property is kind of like their baby. That's their main first family, as they call it. They really enjoy the characters. They like them a lot. They really hold them up on a pedestal. So them going through this whole MCU thing without the Fantastic Four in their staple was a kind of a sticking point for them. And then having lackluster movies over the years of, random Jessica Alba as Invisible Woman, Michael B. Jordan being a Human Torch in another movie. So this was their kind of
you didn't like the Galactus Cloud?
Actually, you know what? Shout out to Lawrence Fishburne because Silver Surfer was pretty dope. That's the only thing I can say. I did like that. But
Julian McMahon was okay as Doom. I'm just gonna say that he wasn't a bad Doom.
Yes,
just
also
badly written.
So badly written, but he wasn't okay. He was okay. But so for them, this was actually a really big thing for them to get the characters back, B, to actually make it in-house and do their own thing. So they were actually, as a company and internally, that was a big thing for them to do this. It's going to be the same feeling when they do X-Men officially, but for them doing Fantastic Four on this scale, how they wanted to do and how they want to present it was a really big deal for Marvel. And so this was kind of like their big silo out of the muck that we've been in since basically Endgame. And I think this was their kind of okay, we're back. We're quote unquote back. We're trying to do our thing. This is what we wanted to do, how we want to do it. And we'll see if it actually worked out. So I think I want to start the conversation like we always do. We'll start with the positives, and then we can go back because in that way we can balance it out.
Why do we have to be nice?
I mean, I'm doing this just like Sinners. Sinners, we had our 10-minute of positive, and then we had 60 minutes of quibbles. This is the same. This is how I look at it.
I need you to use a different example going forward because I have retro quibbles with that one, and you remind me how disappointed I was how soft I went on Sinners. So let's use another example.
Shout out to everyone that's giving me grief about. Hey, so I realized that you guys talked better about Thunderbolts than you guys did Sinners, and I was like, well,
not me. Ooh. Sure. I did see Thunderbolts after we did the review, and I still held it. It's not bad, but I didn't put it where I'm going to put Fantastic Four, and it certainly falls into the same mediocrity as the other stuff in terms of the writing.
Also, a movie that's better than Sinner is not a high bar. So,
and then there's that.
And then there's that. See, this is why Black people don't like us, guys. Come on. All right, so we'll do this. We'll do first impressions, and then we'll kind of go from there. And that could be negative or positive, doesn't really matter. And we'll kind of keep it flowing from there. So that way we can have a little bit more fun. So Fantastic Four, first impressions. Cam, we'll go to you. Get that out. Get it out your system. Go ahead. Get it out.
The good stuff.
So here's the thing. You think I'm about to crap on this movie. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not a big Fantastic Four fan. I'm going to be upfront. I don't care about them. I do care about Doom. Get Doom right. But again, I don't know what's the plan for Doom. So until that happens, the jury's still out for me. Fantastic Four as a reintroduction to these characters is fine. I think this is one of the few movies that I have to rewatch. Because not because it's great or anything. Maybe I just feel like I need to rewatch this again, and we can talk offline about why I need to rewatch this. But again, it's one of those movies where I don't know if I missed anything, but they had some interesting moments with the dynamic of the four, a different approach that I wasn't accustomed to from the previous adaptations of the Fantastic Four, which I thought were interesting. I'm still not 100% on board as Pedro Pascal being Reed Richards. I don't know. Something's off. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. It's just, I don't know.
You're not sure about the fit.
Yeah. Well, yep. We were talking off. Me and D'Angelo were talking offline that I did not believe them as a married couple. But that's a negative.
Mm.
However, I did like the fact that they exploited Reed as when he was thinking about all possible outcomes, that he has this like diabolical side to him. And I was like, yes, I like that.
What do you mean?
Well, I think he's talking about the consistency of being a scientist. And scientists will
think logically than emotionally.
Every option, even if that one of those options would destroy them personally.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought the CGI was pretty interesting. It didn't bother me, except one instant, but we talk about that later. So I thought the story in the first 3/4 of the movie was very interesting. I think they kind of fell off later in the movie. It's again, I thought it had some interesting premises. I don't think they followed through in the end, but I don't think this is a bad movie. I thought it was very interesting. There were some dynamics between certain characters that I thought it got a little cheesy at certain times, but I think that just comes with the territory with anything Marvel and carrying over. But again, I don't have too much positive, but a general sense is I think I need to rewatch this movie. There were, like I said, there were moments where I enjoyed it, and my negatives are not enough to be like this movie's terrible or anything like that. I gave it a 7.3 out of 10 overall. Like, I think it'll stay in the sevens. It's just things I want to check for myself that I want to rewatch this. I didn't say much about this movie that's positive, but I just think it's not as bad as when I usually approach contemporary Marvel movies. And coming from a person that does not like the Fantastic Four, like I said, I'm interested to see where they go with this. And again, if you get Doom right, this rectifies all my other. I just need Doom to be right and really put belt to ass when it comes to being a big baddie, if that's the direction they're going to go.
It's interesting. I have my doubts about that. We'll talk.
I'm with that. I'll go from the positives. I'll say I actually enjoyed the casting. I was curious to see how it worked, and seeing it play out was actually better than I thought. Pedro Pascal did a better job than I thought he was going to be. Not that I think he was going to be bad, but I was kind of like, oh, okay, this kind of works. And I'm 50-50 on Fantastic Four. I think Jonathan Hickman's run, he's a really prolific writer, kind of made Fantastic Four a little bit more of a thing for me than before. I thought it was always kind of hokey, a little corny. But they did an interesting job. I think I enjoyed the thing. I enjoyed Human Torch. Their interaction was awesome. That was actually kind of fun. I still wasn't completely sold on Reed and Sue being a thing, kind of, but not really. Didn't feel like it. But I see what they were trying to do with that. Being an alt universe was an interesting choice. I kind of know why they did that, but we'll talk about that later. But like overall, like I thought like they had fun with it, which is kind of cool. That was one thing I thought about this. Kind of like with Superman, it just felt fun. Like, oh, this is enjoyable. Mole Man was hilarious. That's the same cat that's in Cobra Kai as I think his name's like Shark something or whatever. That dude's hilarious. He's silly and stupid and just whatever's, but I enjoyed that character a lot. But yeah, I thought like from a lot of like technical stuff, like there's a lot of cool design choices that were cool. There's a lot of other things that are interesting. There's some really like wonky CGI stuff that we can talk about later. but like some of the stuff that was really good, like Galactus was a lot better looking than I thought he was going to be. I was actually super surprised. I did not expect him to be as cool as they looked. Like they did a really good job of trying to translate the big helmet head into live action. So I was surprised they did it in a good way. Silver Surfer didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Not because of the character, but more just how they did it. And like, a lot of the fighting and like that kind of stuff. So they actually kind of executed a little bit better. But yeah, like overall, like kind of like what Cam said, like it was enjoyable. Like when I came out, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, you know, I didn't feel like, oh, this is horrible or oh, this is amazing. It was just kind of like, oh, this is enjoyable. I didn't feel like it was a waste of time. And like I enjoyed the experience of like watching it. Josh?
So first off, I want to say that I think the thing that stuck out to me is they nailed the aesthetic of the Fantastic Four. I've been in and out with Fantastic Four since I was a kid. It can be really, 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 really boring, or they can be really, really good when it's the characters moving through the plot and not the plot moving through the characters. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're kind of reading the Fantastic Four for as a comic. And I feel like they did a reasonable, above reasonable, I would even say, job of nailing that aesthetic, you know, in terms of the choices that they have to make because of who they are and how they interact with the world around them. Like you guys, I didn't necessarily buy Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal as husband and wife. It felt a little stilted. That said, and I'm a huge Vanessa Kirby fan, so I think it wasn't that either one of them were bad per se in their casting, so much as I think as a couple they didn't work for some reason. It didn't jump out at me. But again, we're doing positives, so I think they nailed Ben. I think they nailed the individual characters. I think that's the thing that jumps out at me. They nailed the individual characters. Joseph Quinn as Johnny worked. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm on her own worked. Pedro, I don't know. Like there were parts where he worked, and there were parts where he didn't. I don't think it was all bad. But it was, if you made me quantify, it was probably 60-40 leaning against. They nailed Ben. They nailed Galactus hard. They really did a good job overall. There were minor quibbles with how they personified him, so to say. Julia Garner as Silver Surfer. I thought that I was not going to like her as Silver Surfer. I'm not sure what it was. Like Cam, it wasn't necessarily that they gender swapped, because I mean they've swapped all sorts of stuff in Marvel at this in the MCU at this point, and they've nailed it every single time. So I wasn't expecting to have minor quibbles with her as Silver Surfer, but she wound up working.
Can I say something real quick? Just before you, she's played the Silver Surfer before. There's comic book versions of her. So this is not like them
There's been a female Silver Surfer. Yes.
She was it in the comics. So that's what's the guy?
That's Norrin Radd's
girlfriend.
Not in this continuity, because they don't make reference to it at all. But
in the comics,
in the comic book, she is Norrin Radd. She is the reason Norrin Radd becomes the Silver Surfer.
Exactly.
But she also was the herald of Galactus as well.
At some point,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So,
not for many years though. I think that was like many years later. Her being
But but she wound up working, and they gave her things to do, which I liked. It wasn't just, we're going to gender swap for gender swapping's sake. I think because this ends up being a different reality from the 616, which they established literally first frame of video, that this is the 828, this is the 828 continuity. And shout out to Shackman for making it the 828.
Can I ask a question?
Which is Jack Kirby's birthday, so that was a good look.
828 in context of the MCU means what exactly?
It's just it just means that it's
honestly nothing.
It's just
yeah.
they
Because
named it 828 as a tribute to Jack Kirby.
No. I know all that. What I'm saying is we're giving them credit for putting a card that says 828 when we've never distinguished at all any separate Earths and their existence in the MCU. At least not the numerical labeling of them. So that's what I'm saying.
Doctor Strange.
So that's what I'm saying. In what context did that make sense for the audience that has not read Marvel or is not familiar with that?
So D, are you saying Marvel doesn't know how to do a multiverse?
Stop.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that, and I've said it many times. But I interrupted Josh, so I'll let him finish. I was just curious about that because
didn't they establish the numerical value for different? I feel like they did somewhere.
Maybe
if they did, maybe it could have been Multiverse of Madness. I could see them doing it there. Again, they don't give context. Is my point, and it hasn't been consistent.
That's a fair statement.
Go ahead, Josh.
Like I said, go ahead. Yeah.
Love Ben. Ben was great. And then the world around each the sort of section of that world that each character inhabits. Reed has his head up his ass the entire, all the time, every time. Johnny is I think they neutered Johnny a little bit much, but again, we're doing positives. Sorry. But they gave Johnny things to do. He wasn't just the devil may care, the devil may care, girl crazy, stunt guy from movies past. They gave him things to do. And Dee and I were talking about this earlier today. They really shine a light on the fact that he has a place amongst those people in the Fantastic Four, because at the end of the day, he is a scientist. He's not just some dummy, running around, chasing skirts and driving motorcycles through fiery hoops. Like he is a part of that team for a reason and not just for comic relief.
Yeah, he ain't just hanging around his little sister, which is what Tim Story's films heavily made it seem like, that he's just Ben is the mechanic and engineer, and Reed is the genius
and the pilot. Yeah,
and the pilot, and Sue is a genius and in her own right, but Johnny is just a jocular idiot. But they fixed that in this.
Yeah, they fixed that.
Yeah, I agree. Great effect. That was a good part. I think that it was one of those moments where it reminded me of in the comics before, like Spider-Man had gotten away from him being a scientist for a long time. And then there's a spot where it's like Spidey, the Fantastic Four, they're all talking about it. And Stark comes in, Reed and Stark and Pym are trying to figure out the problem. And then Spidey's like, oh yeah, the smart guys are over there. And Human Torch is like, dude, aren't you smart too? And Spidey's like, oh yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah.
And I like that they added.
I was going to say, this falls along the line of Batman being the Dark Knight detective.
Only right. Yes.
We got to see
just reminding that. Yeah. Reminding people of that. So it was good that I like that aspect that they're like, yeah, you're right. He's not just a playboy. He actually is there for a reason.
Yeah. And they showed a good shot of him as an astronaut with the astronaut stuff on. Because again, you have to understand that he's not just there because for the sake of being there. He is an astronaut.
100%. Ben aside from being the pilot, he's also just a dude from Brooklyn. And they nailed that. He's walking around with the Brooklyn Dodgers hat. You had to have a shot of him in the trench coat with the shirt and tie and the vest and the hat. You had to have that. And Shackman didn't make it feel forced. Threw that in and it worked. And it worked perfectly. What else? Yeah, and just the general Fantastic Four aesthetic in overarching. Galactus was dope. The character design was great. Ralph Ineson voiced the character perfectly. I thought it was fun. And people online are like, Galactus didn't do anything. Ugh. Galactus doesn't do things. Like hold on, stop. Galactus really just kind of hangs out, goes to a planet, eats it, moves on. There's not a lot. If you read Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars, he didn't do a damn thing for like 9 issues. That's Galactus's thing. He does not do a lot. He just decides, all right, you know what? This is the planet I'm going to eat. He assembles the machinery that he uses to consume planets, and he's kind of just either chilling on his little chair, or he's kind of standing with his arms sort of, cast outward so that he can absorb the energy, and then he's out. Galactus doesn't do a lot. Name one story that you read in any comic book where Galactus is like actively like doing stuff. He does not do that. So I'm not. That's a hill I will die on with a machine gun in my arms, aimed at anybody who decides to say different. It's not accurate.
So here's the thing.
Galactus does not do things.
I'm not even going to talk about Galactus.
Active.
I'm not going to talk about Galactus till we get to the negative part. The positive part I was going to say was that I didn't mind the Easter eggs in this. The little nuggets that they were dropping. I thought that was pretty cool. Usually I hate the Easter eggs.
And they're a fair amount.
Yeah, I saw in hindsight a little video analysis of the Easter eggs. Oh, that was pretty interesting. That was pretty cool. It didn't bother me this time. So that's what I wanted to add on to the positive to this. But we'll get to Galactus soon.
But I personally like the way they personified Galactus. I think there were definitely quibbles that I had with how they did it as well. But for the most part, I think they got it right. He's not some active villain, sort of, wringing his hands and twirling his mustache and, and pontificating. He's an entity of very few words. He ain't got to say a lot. I thought, what else? Oh yeah. I thought the way that Sue took him on, and I think the way that, I think that was a little bit much, but there in every story where Sue has to push herself, the end result is very similar to how it wound up in the film. So there were things that the overall, without going on ad nauseum, there were a lot of things that were very Fantastic Four-y that they got right, and they included it in, and Shackman did a great job of putting it in the film without making it feel like it was shoehorned. Everything that I can think of that were Fantastic Four things, Reed overthinking, Reed not being able to read, kind of just spazzing out when he doesn't know how to solve a problem with science and equations and inventing things. And the despair that comes over not just him, but the team, almost on some, well, dude, if you can't figure it out, we're screwed. And they nailed that. And I think there were a lot of interpersonal things like that. Ben not being able to, not as courageous as the Thing tends to be. The interpersonal side of his life is the thing that he's still a big softy and kind of fearful and hesitant about. Johnny being the exact opposite. He's just boisterous and constantly just talking and saying silly things. Sue sort of being the moral compass and the backbone of the team. And Reed being the big brain who on the one hand, his brain his smarts and his science skills are as much a superpower as they are an Achilles heel. And when he can't use his powers the same way when he can't use his brain to solve a problem, he just kind of fizzles, like he spazzes out. That's Reed Richards. So, overall, they nailed the characters. Shackman nailed the characterizations. He, in so much as I have, was Pedro good? Was he not good? Once you get past that, if you can get past that, you realize that he did exactly what you were supposed to do with Reed Richards in a film. So yeah, overall, I would say it worked.
And shout out to Shackman because he's a TV director. He did all of WandaVision. He did other notable things, but this is his real like first big budget
Thrones.
like game. Yeah, he did a lot of good prestige like television stuff, but this is his first foray into like film and doing a big
season
blockbuster.
of Game of Thrones?
You might have to look that part up.
Valid question.
He's been a director throughout the show's run, so he's done stuff with the better seasons. He also directed. Most of his stuff was from It's Always Sunny.
Always Sunny. He did Monarch too. That was on Apple Plus.
Yeah, It's Always Sunny was where he really started.
And I can't with the Game of Thrones comment because I'm just being tongue in cheek because we all know.
It's a legit thing. I mean, the directing might have still been good, but the writing, because even when they're at their worst times, the directing was still okay. Never had an issue with their directing. It was always with the screenplays that they approved and turned in, and then ultimately shot. So,
D, we'll get you. We'll start with you. We'll finish and start with you for the last of Fantastic Four.
Well, I'm not going to talk about any positives because that was already covered here, and I'm also not going to talk. I'm going to go into my impressions.
You're just drifting the car right into the negatives.
Well, I'm not going to break them up. I'm going to compartmentalize them for the sake of time, but also because I'm starting not to separate the two things in my mind. And just listening to all you guys, I know why. Josh, your comments was largely talking about how the things worked as a comic book translation, but in none of this have I heard how does it work as a film, as a piece of cinema? Because then Cam's suggestion about the whole thing about Galactus does become an issue, which is it may be true that he doesn't do anything in the comic book, but this is a different medium entirely, and one that until I hear that from you or a fan, I don't know that if I'm sitting in the audience and I'm seeing this cosmic being. So a lot of this stuff that we were seeing, while yes, it did serve and work better than any Fantastic Four translation from the comic book into the screen, and unquestionably worked better. There were some issues with the cinematic aspect of it and the world building part of it. Because I agree with everything you said, Josh, all of you. The Galactus was a great design. It was amazing to look at that, even though I would have liked the scale to have been up a little bit more and possibly giving him more things to do that were cinematic, such as opposed to them pulling up on him and the ship is eating the planet. Why can't he just be like popping out of the planet and like consuming it that way? Because that would be frightening, if you ask me. If you had in your mind one, it would be funny, but it would also be scary because you have in your mind, you're Fantastic Four. You're going to, at best, we're going to communicate with a fifth level or fifth dimensional species, one that's capable of making technology look like magic. So at the very least, we're going to encounter this might not be, but when you see that this guy can palm an entire planet, it just changes the entire game for you. And so they weren't doing, to me, the job on the cinematic part to convey that aspect and that element.
I agree. I think the one part too,
that is
before you go on. Yeah, before you go on is like, I think earlier on when we introduced into Galactus, I thought it was dope. It felt menacing. It felt otherworldly.
Absolutely.
These little dinky ass humans talking to literally a cosmic god. And I was like, okay, the scale of it made it work. The moment that he touched ground onto Earth, I was like, wait, what? Why is he Godzilla size? This don't make no sense to me. It diminished it for me.
This was something that Dee mentioned off camera when he and I were talking about it. He said something along the lines of seeing something like, you just said it, seeing something like Galactus, holding the Earth, like basically sort of having his hand out around the Earth and then starting to shrink, because Galactus does does.
Yeah, we know
scale.
that he can change his scale so that there has been entire panels where he has walked on Earth, like or walked on a planet. So we know he has the ability to do that. Right. So that was a missed opportunity to me in terms of showing Galactus. And then the other thing I pitched to Josh was, why couldn't we have started with or gotten a point of view from Shayla Ball, in which when we before the Fantastic Four sees Galactus, he's doing this thing, he's eating a planet, and he goes, Harold, you will go now to Earth, and you will tell them I am coming, but you will also bring me the Fantastic Four because they have something I want, something precious. It establishes his menace. It establishes his presence. It gives him more to do, and it makes him a villain that is threatening beyond this sort of generic way. When he pulls up, everything is all hunky-dory. They can handle everything, even the president taking orders from them. And now that's all changed. So there was some emotional.
Your arms were up while you were doing Galactus.
Yeah, well, you gotta put the arms up, and when you become a cosmic entity, you have to command and eat planets.
But I agree though. It's one of those things where, like, I think again, Josh is correct. In the comics, Galactus usually just walks and stands around.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
in a cinematic way, and that's why when we were first introduced to Galactus, that's the first thing I said. I was like, oh shit, this is dope. Scale, It felt menacing. They were on a high of we're the Fantastic Four, we can do whatever we want. Then we meet something that we can't do anything on. And I was like, okay, cool.
Down.
Now we've established that y'all aren't the shit anymore. But then they kind of squandered that away later on.
So the narrative structure just wasn't working for me. Like the comic book, the faithfulness to the source material was great. Like Josh said, like you all pointed out. And that is why I did not like it. And I thought it worked, but the same problems you guys mentioned about the chemistry. I thought that Ben and Johnny, neither of them ever came into their own, or we don't care about them outside of the context of the unit or the context of Sue and Ree, who had lots of development.
Really? You didn't dig like the Ben, sort of just chilling in Brooklyn, coming home, to Brooklyn and, seeing the kids and picking up the car and seeing the school teacher and when he's in the trench coat and the fedora.
Okay,
those things.
What does that say about him?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Other than
he's
a nice guy. He's from Brooklyn.
Or he wants to be normal because on his outer layer, he does not look like the rest of his team, but he walks in the city like a normal human being.
But that's a good point. But they don't. But to Dee's point, playing devil's advocate, they don't show you there's a sadness about the character. Like he's pretty much accepted that,
fine.
That being rock guy is just, who I am and what I am. But there's no man, there's no moment where he sees the school teacher and he's like, man, I really wish,
if that had ended with her going out with a man.
Yeah, there is a moment where she's coming out of her apartment building and he's kind of just standing there looking at her, but he's not pining. Like he's not like, oh man, No,
he doesn't cry. He doesn't say anything. He's not squeezing something that shows that he's angry and crushing it to atoms
and wishes that he could
be with her. So
yeah.
So that's my thing. There's the emotional disconnect. You're right, Cam. I think that's the reason we see that, and that's what that says about him. But there is no emotional connection that allows him to stand on his own. That gives us the reason to want to see more from him. It's the same thing with Johnny. Why couldn't Johnny be out on a date with someone? Like he could have gone out with at least one girl and not have been shown as this womanizing asshole. Show them doing something that says that they fit in this world. That's why the phrase I used to Josh was weak world building. Because they they showed us all the montage and, they went into space and this happened to them and they came back and everybody crowned them the high kings and queen of the world. And, no setup that allows us to understand why the people would all of a sudden like that turn on them and want them to offer up their child as a blood sacrifice, or why they would choose not to do it.
Yeah.
We have to know those emotional connections because they strengthen the cinematic storytelling.
Yeah,
and a speech from Stu is the thing that sort of soothes the balm of all the people who are like, hey, why don't you give up your kid? It's for the planet, stupid lady.
Yeah.
You're selfish. You're all of these things.
Yeah, and it just didn't hit right. I think that's the part that, like, especially for the, that was the one thing I would say from the older movies that he did good for Thing, right? They would do something like something would fall on the ground and he tried to pick it up, but he can't because his hands are too big. And he'd be sad about that.
With the coin, it was a small thing.
Super small thing, but that showed that he's not fitting in that where he's trying to, but he can't. Johnny, same thing, right? Can't find love, always da-da-da. So you're right. There was little parts in that as they established other things, there's parts in it they didn't establish for those two specifically. I did like
one thing that they did, and I was just going to add this with Johnny. They kept doing this where they would mention, oh, he's a ladies' man. And then the camera would cut to him and he would literally look like this. Like, I'm like, why has he got this face? If this is something that he knows about himself and everyone else knows that about him, why is this moment awkward? And then also, why is it often coming from his sister saying this stuff? Like, that's just awkward and weird. And so there was a lot of that. There was just a lot of disconnect with I think that's the problem that all of Marvel is having. James Gunn had a little bit with Superman, and that is the writing choices that are made to tell these stories. Sometimes they just don't establish enough or they don't give enough context. And the expectation is that, yes, because these characters have been around for decades, you know these things. But if I'm approaching the storytelling, I'm always approaching it from the point of view of the audience members who have never picked up a book. Not to say that I'm catering to them or pandering to them, but that grounds my cinematic knowledge and how I decide to take the materials and adapt it into a movie, a film.
The assumption is they know nothing. Yeah.
That they know nothing. I would never assume that they just assume that Galactus, that this is normal, that Galactus just sits on his high throne.
So
and that's the downside of not having an origin story, you know, and not to say that they should have, not to say that they should have done that, but the downside to not having an origin story is if you don't dot your I's and cross your T's, you have what D'Angelo just rattled off in terms of being problematic and not sort of not grounding the characters and sort of without telling them that these are the things that take place with these characters and in that world. You show them, but they didn't do it in that particular instance. They did not. Shackman didn't do that.
Maybe they're saving it for another movie. Who knows?
I think it's a little late by then.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You made a point about individually, the characters kind of work more than the unit. For me,
I said that they work as a unit more than they work individually, because when they go to individually, Johnny and Ben fall off they cease being characters who can stand on their own, who do things that are exclusively for them and not for the whole unit or Reed and Sue, which is why I didn't like Franklin's presence. And I knew that Franklin was included simply in their typical convoluted way to introduce mutants. And of course, that's not something that the rest of the audience will know or just general. So I give him leeway on that. But I felt he was a distraction the whole time. And some of it just felt like we could have waited to meet Franklin and focused on them. Because I think the Franklin stuff took away from Johnny and Ben. And that's why I don't feel like individually they work together as much as they did.
And I would say too, with Franklin, Franklin's an interesting character in the comics just in general, and they never really hit it right. It's always it's just a really random. It's a MacGuffin, essentially. But like, it's just the way they've used Franklin in any of context in all the comics has always been this weird, whatever the writer feels like using them for.
Well, in this case, he was a Deus Ex Machina to bring Sue back. You know, the whole movie they're talking about, he don't have any powers and they can't see him. And obviously we know that's a lie because Galactus looked deep into his embryonic soul and saw that he was going to be a cosmic egg or something, you know. And so that moment at the end still was a Deus Ex Machina, even though they thought they had set it up. Because you didn't say that he healed anyone or that this was that he could bring light back into a dead life. Like that wasn't established.
So you mean you want to establish what his powers are? No.
I want to establish at least that he has the ability to heal someone. You could have showed that with him being in the garden touching a dead flower and it blooms again. It didn't even have to bloom in a moment. You could you could have them pick her up and then pick him up and then cut back to the shot of the once dead flower where he was palming it, and now it's got all these red. It's
bloomed.
Flowers. It's bloomed. It's bloomed.
And I would say also too, like the one part that they a lot of that could have been explained as well is in the Silver Surfer character, right? Silver Surfer is power cosmic, right? They basically talk about how, you know, it's a regular old chick. Galactus was like, yo, you're my herald. I'm giving you stuff. But they just said stuff. They didn't say what it was. They didn't say, hey, I'm imbuing you. I'm imbuing you with power cosmic, which allows you to do. Yeah, exactly.
It was literally freaking survive a singularity, a supernova. 100%. She turned into spaghetti and then reconstituted herself and then somehow found Galactus.
Yeah, so like they literally were just like, yo, girl, all right, you're my herald. I'm gonna give you some stuff and then keep it moving. They didn't say, they could have been like, yo, I got imbued with the power cosmic, da. And she could have been one that said that maybe Franklin has something, because that would have made more sense because she has the same stuff.
She's the train spotter. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's the part that was a missed opportunity to bridge that gap instead of just automatically being like, oh yeah, the child is the this, da. And I think and the last part I was talking about for the Franklin part was like, in the end, the CG on Thing and Franklin looked so off. The texturing was off. The shadowing was off. Like from a technical, like as a regular person, you're like, that looks weird. As a technical person, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Y'all spent $200 million. Galactus looks fantastic. You guys CG'd a baby, and that shit looks like ass. It didn't make no sense to me whatsoever.
It
didn't make no sense. Yo, get a couple little, white twin babies, swap them out for the things that you need, and make that shit happen, son. Like, what are you doing? But go ahead, Cam. Sorry.
So, oh man, lots of thoughts. So little time. I thought Ben was kind of the linchpin for being emotionally vulnerable to each individual character. I think Ben gets everybody in a sense. When he saw that Sue was pregnant, he was more in tune with that than her own husband. I felt like he knows Sue. He knows Johnny. He knows Reed. He knows their mannerism. I think he was like connected in a weird way to everybody, which I thought was pretty cool for his minimal character development. I agree. I do like the fact that Johnny had a purpose. He is a scientist, and they noted that by him deciphering this language. And they go back to that part. And it does veer off from the previous incantations of how Johnny is portrayed as a womanizer and doesn't do much. I agree with you guys about the whole character dynamic between them being a family, but more so husband and wife. I never believed it until there were moments when they had an argument. I thought that was one of the better scenes between Reed and Sue Storm, where Sue calls him out for being such a scientist and thinking logically that you think the worst. And like, for you to put our baby at risk is like unfathomable, but that's who you are.
And that's very comic booky. That's very comic book read.
But I thought that was
crap out of that.
I thought that was pretty cool. Like there was a moment, right? However, again, it just goes back to D'Angelo's point about, if you've never watched this, how do we know that Galactus is this big bad thing, right? I would have been more happy if they'd have just showed Galactus sitting in his throne, barking his orders, then showing him coming to Earth and doing all this crazy stuff. Maybe
you
he
wanted him to be a cloud. I get it.
No, not a cloud, but the way they show the movie made him look so cool, awesome. He did nothing interesting in that movie to me to personify this is Galactus and this is what we should be afraid of.
Right. There was no setup for it. There was no you should fear him because aside from the fact that he eats planets, he's a universal constant or he's something like that.
So, yeah. So we got robbed of something. This to me felt very Ant-Man-ish.
Well, that's what I mean by the character development. Some of the stuff was not off. You had mentioned about Ben, and I agree with that. But that still doesn't give Ben something of his own. That just makes him sort of supporting.
I think being from Brooklyn is a character trait.
Perhaps it is. But
that's a person from New York that gets that.
Exactly. I know you, Brooke. I know that. I know how to get it. I lived there for a decade. I know, but I know you guys got character and you got personalities.
I think that was enough for Ben personally.
But I agree. I think maybe but my thing is again just give them something because you got 2 hours and some change, right? So we could have had a scene where Ben is in Brooklyn. He's trying to be, like you said, that normal person. But because he's a thing, it gets in the way and it causes him to retreat because that gives you something of the psychology of this character. Him identifying that she was pregnant and the things that he knows about them really, to me, just says that of the four of them, he's the most well-adjusted, ironically.
Most in tune. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's literally physically not the most adjusted. He's the one that got affected the most. So I think I would just like to see more actual character development in that he's getting something that we can then build upon, that we can continue to build upon. And I think that's what they didn't give Johnny and Ben. You know, like, could Johnny have gone to see this woman that he's been with as the dependent? And that was the other thing. Pen and Doom, why aren't we seeing people holding and like you saw, like Galactus is coming and he's gonna eat you. So you know, here's some kind of, you know,
before I have to cut. The world is ending. They set us up by showing that the representative Latveria was not there. Cool. However, I don't know in what world that if the world is ending, Doom is not even chipped in to help. He is non-president this whole thing.
But also, that was a waste of. That was if that was Robert Downey Jr. in that costume at the end, that was a total waste of money and everything.
Yes.
So, and here's my second point.
Agreed.
I would have had Galactus winning, destroying the planet.
That was 100%. My money. My money was on that. My money was on.
Yeah.
They cost out
the way that they teed it up, especially for the way that they teed up Thunderbolts. My thought process, my headcanon was, Galactus is going to end up eating the planet, and they bounce with Franklin because they're coming after Franklin. He's coming after Franklin after he consumes the planet.
Yeah, and everything so they did didn't work, and now they just got to protect their baby
now
and themselves.
We out. Yeah, you're not getting our kid, and you're not taking the planet and our kid. So we're out.
Yeah. And one final thing I would say
to get the 616
to get the duality of being a scientist and being pragmatic. Once the world is ending, and they already said we want to sacrifice your kid, that would have been the moment for them to switch into a whole different world and leave that planet for them.
Yeah. That would have been.
That would have been. But again, whatever I said, they don't got a sack between them, Disney or Marvel. So you know, it's
same on me.
You talking about being bold, and that's not something that they do. So
and I think that's the thing where I laugh because I like Josh. I had the same thought when I saw the ending of Thunderbolts. Spoilers, but you saw it was the ship, and you're like, oh, Fantastic Four. And in my mind, I was like, okay, whatever they were doing in the movie, they might lose, and they're coming over to warn us, which would make sense, right? Yep. But then watching this movie, I was like,
or trying to make away with Franklin, and
Franklin.
The fact that they made that a sticking point in one of the TV spots I was saying to D when I saw that, I was like, oh, so the whole thing is going to be about Franklin. Watch.
Yeah,
and it would have made sense if you had developed it that way, because look, they waste those. Now they waste those extra end credit scenes, which is why I appreciated when James Gunn was like, "Oh, you guys want the end credit? Wait, there's gonna be an end credit scene, and it's just literally Superman and Krypto looking out on Earth." Yeah. I loved it because I was like, that he brought it back to. He's trying to say, stop wasting your time thinking that this is going to be some great cliffhanger to the next thing, continuity. Yeah. We're not going to be stuffing our movies like that. The only thing you need to focus on is what happens between that 120 or more minutes when the credits roll at the beginning and at the end. That's all you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about the extra stuff. Thunderbolts, it was a gimmick. And as I said before, this whole thing, and the more I see it, the more I'm convinced this whole thing is a gimmick. Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, a gimmick. He was there, but they didn't show him at all. What's the point? Are you paying? You literally paid him millions of dollars to do that?
Yeah. And I was actually thinking about that as well. It was like, it made no sense to have anything Doom in this movie the way they were set up. Because the big bad was Galactus, there was Silver Surfer. You didn't need the empty chair from Latvia. You didn't need the ending part.
Not if you're not gonna pay it off.
Exactly. It's a checkoff.
But in their mind, they paid it off in the end credits. But
no, they didn't.
No, you're right. No, absolutely. I'm just saying this is the type of thinking that went into showing that chair for Latvia. Oh, you guys recognize that. You know. Can you see my eye? That's what that writing is. And that's why I said, if we don't get anything beyond a gimmick with Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, which is why I've renamed them Avengers Gimmick Day and Avengers Nostalgia Wars, because beyond that, narratively, they have nothing. Yes, these will be visual marvels, no pun intended, and they'll have great action and there'll be some cool stuff, but they will tell probably the most mediocre story that we have seen from them to this date. And I guarantee it at this point.
Yeah, because we don't have a gun or a Whedon to sort of guide the story, to guide the overarching story.
And I think I hope the RDJ thing is a gimmick and they just throw him for X amount of small time and then he pops away and goes something else. It's not going to happen, but you're right. But by watching Fantastic Four and kind of seeing it, because for me, the first 2/3 of the movie was pretty cool. First act was cool. Second act, establishing this stuff. Second act, we got some real danger. I felt some real like tension, like, oh shit, I don't know how we're gonna fix this. And I was like, okay, I like where they're going with this, because I fully expected them to lose. And so seeing Galactus, seeing the scale, finally getting them knocked off their high horse, coming back shook on some like, yo, we didn't win yet. We're just trying to figure it out. That was dope. And then
also the visual of her power, of Sue's power, when she did that, should have changed a little bit. The fact that it was the same visual the whole time is why people are like, well, how the hell did she pull that off? Because it didn't look like her power changed or it increased. We didn't see her she didn't elevate and start levitating. There was no rising of gravity. Like, we didn't see any kind of indication other than it's kept widening that she was increasing her power.
Yeah. And I think that's the part, even with her quote unquote dying, I didn't see why she died. Like, it was just kind of like,
no bloody nose, like, no red eye, no eye.
Yep. Didn't she have a bloody nose?
And nope,
she had it.
She had some red eyes.
I don't remember
or anything.
I know Jessica Alba's nose would bleed in that movie.
And I thought, so again, this is what I was talking about. There was those movies, not great, but there were subtle things that showed the different levels. And I think for Sue, you saw some cool, like, I loved the shot when they showed Sue and Reed looking at the baby, and she just turned her belly invisible. That shit was dope. It just showing another way of how her power probably works, right?
The
when they're in
light
space,
spectrum. If she can manipulate and bend light, she can make you see her. It's not that. It's not that she's physically invisible. She is manipulating the light spectrum. Exactly. She's bending light so that you cannot see her anymore because we see on a specific spectrum the most out of most animals on the planet. But at the same time.
And I like that they kind of kept that part of it. I also shout out to them for at least obeying some laws of physics of Johnny going into space and then his fire like going out, like when he was fading out as he started to flame out.
He should have froze and he should have been gasping for breath. But we'll let that one slide.
But at least they had took that part of physics of like fire is not in space. We all know, like we should all know this anyway.
Wait a minute, except for in the Acolyte or from Star Wars. Remember there was a fire on the outside.
Acolyte is fantasy. Star Wars is fantasy. Star Wars is fantasy.
You're right.
It is not.
There's no fire in space. There's no fire, and no, the sun is not fire.
Yes.
For those of you who are thinking like, oh, well, what about the sun? It's not fire.
Same with Johnny in Galactus's lair, essentially, and how his oxygen was going lower as he used more of his fire. I thought that was smart. At least you're establishing some rules. You're following those rules.
Oxygen within the suit is your oxygen supply for fire.
Exactly. So like you set some rules, you follow them. At least that aspect of it was good. I like that they kept with that. But yeah, you're right. I think overall, like there's this. I enjoyed the movie. I came out like, oh, this was cool. But then like going back to our critical eye, where you have, okay, what are we trying to say here as a movie and that kind of stuff? That's where it kind of like, for a lot of Marvel stuff, that third act, it kind of falls apart. But I think, from a design eye, oh man, I loved all the costuming. I love the era of the
60
era bending stuff. Of 60 retro. I like that, you saw mostly white people, but then up close, you saw some black folks in there and some Asian folks, just to let you guys know there's more people there.
Oh, and let's just be clear. The main one that we saw was like a maid type figure, an assistant. The one that was helping the right.
Yeah.
So they worked.
Shout out to that actress. That actress was from Ted Lasso, and she does an amazing job in that.
I didn't catch the character's name, though. I didn't.
Exactly. Black lady. And then the other little small thing I saw as well was Natasha Lyonne's character worked at a synagogue orphanage thing. Normally, in a lot of these type of tropes, you would see a Catholic church or something to that effect.
An orphanage. It was very decidedly,
or orphanage or something. It was decidedly a Jewish one, which is what I thought was an interesting choice. But yeah, I think like you said, it goes back to, we talk about this all the time. It's the choices that they make that from a movie and cinematic standpoint just don't hold the water that they need to. And so you have to suspend disbelief for that Marvel logic to kind of keep buying into it.
As far as negatives go for me, there were little inconsistencies. Like for example, the scene where the action sequence where Galactus first encounters the Fantastic Four and Johnny immediately blowtorches his eyes, hurts Galactus for reasons I can't fathom. But then they throw a tanker truck at him and there's an oil slick all over him. And then Johnny basically ignites the gasoline. No effect. Which one is it? If you're going to do it once and fire hurts him, then fire hurts him all the time. Pick one, or it doesn't hurt him at all.
Absolutely.
There should be no scenario where flame can even begin to damage a being like Galactus. But okay, if you're going to do it, then do it straight on through. Ben's beard. Ben's beard.
I don't understand why that was there. I just don't get it.
It was not.
I was going to try to not say anything and see if no one else, we could just let that part go.
Man.
No. It was too much of a visual annoyance. It didn't. It was supposed to show the passage of time. But how is it that The Rock can sprout a beard, but not freaking Johnny or Reed. I guess they had time to shave, but they still trying to figure out
had his mustache and his 5 o'clock shadow beard situation going on.
But he had
that was there from the beginning.
He had the full blown wizard beard though, like the one that comes the one that hangs that's distinguished.
Yeah.
Like the beard you have now, just shorter. Just a little shorter. Yeah, he got that kind of beard, but rock stone.
Yeah, that didn't work at all. Is there any period in the comics where he has a beard?
No. Nope, not at all.
So then what the shit, man?
I just kept thinking, why?
I might have to look it up, but just off of my knowledge of the last 40 years of comic, I don't even think of it that I can.
You know what I kept thinking was Thanos' beard, but that actually didn't look bad. That looked good in the comic book. And that was something Josh and I talked about the last time Galactus actually did something, or one of the rare times was that book when he's fighting for his life against Thanos.
Where Thanos wins. Yeah. Where he teleports to a basically a barren Earth, and it's just Ghost Rider hanging out.
Yeah.
And Ghost Rider have that ill conversation. That was great.
Yep. He was like,
Thanos wins might be my favorite Marvel book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Shout out to Donny Cates, man.
Donny Cates, he actually made me a fan with that book. I didn't really check for him before, but that book really made me an actual fan. Absolutely. And from then on, I followed his career since then, because I
will read anything that man writes.
That was like, 100%. Okay, you get a prompt and they tell you, look, we don't got no kind of parameters here, just right within the sandbox. And he's like, all right, well, let's think about it if that motherfucker actually won. What the Marvel universe will look like in that scenario. And it was a really, when Josh sent me that, I was like, that was an enjoyable read. But when he does the Galactus,
and then what I liked about it the most was, again, we talked about this before, it was bold. And I've been reading comics since I was 5 or 6. I am now in my mid 40s, 45. So 40 years of comic book reading. When I read that, I've never seen the best first 5 pages. It's Thanos just kicked the shit out of the Chitauri. He took over the throne. He now rules the planet. Then all of nowhere, a cosmic Ghost Rider, comes in with a broken broken Infinity Gem. The time one is like, yo, my boss wants to see you. Thanos is like, I don't see. Smacks him, and then he's like, you're coming with me, and then takes him off. What?
And then it ends up being him, the King Thanos, who rules all of the universe.
Yes, man.
Wild.
It's
wild.
And Death still could give 2 shits.
And that's the best part
until the very end.
Until the very end, when he realized what she wanted.
Total sense. And we're not going to spoil it here, but you need that book in your life like you've never read a comic book before. You need that book in your life.
But it's if you're gonna be, it's just like total nihilism on the part of a Marvel writer. Just like,
that's Donny Cates in a nutshell. I mean, his idea to kill the Inhumans was just like, I want them to die. Yes, but also the way that he goes about it is hectic.
Well, probably because Marvel doesn't have many real stakes in their storytelling. So when you do something like that, it's
And so I would say is I was at Marvel when right after Thanos dies and Thanos wins. And so when Cates pitched his the death of the Inhumans, the notes were hilarious. Because literally he was like, I want to kill the Inhumans. And someone was like, even the dog, he was like, the dog dies first.
That
was it. That was literally a quote in the notes. They were like, the dog dies first.
Lockjaw, I love Lockjaw is one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time for no reason other than Lockjaw is just awesome.
He's just a lovable dog with superpowers.
And just it when Cam told me that was before I read it, Cam told me this, and I was like, all right, I need a moment before I read this.
Josh is like, don't tell me that.
Yeah, like, and I'm not even like a
Not the
hardcore dog
dog.
lover like that, but I love Lockjaw. Lockjaw's always been great, man. And like, so wait, I remember asking Cam like 4 times. So wait. He kills Lockjaw, and Cam every time would be like, first to go.
You have to remember that he's going first.
He was
so
like,
you
first.
better
He's going
get
first.
ready. You better get ready. As soon as you fill up the page and open up, he's going.
God. I'm getting a headache just talking about it.
And it was a good thing, and I liked it because it was again bold. And that's
bold.
the thing I would think about.
It has balls. It does it pushes the envelope and it takes the risks.
Yes, and this is what we're missing in the MCU now is there's no boldness, and like even the last Kate's got to do Guardians of the Galaxy, and the premise was Thanos dies. So when he dies, he leaves a message to all his enemies. So all his enemies gather in one place for him to everybody can. It's the whole cosmic everybody from Silver Surfer,
like
Nova, Quasar, his brother Star Fox is there. All the Guardians of the Galaxy there. Everyone's there, and they play the message, and he's like, "Look, bitches, I'm about to come back. I'm not going to tell you how. Y'all gonna have to figure it out. But I'm coming back. I'm probably gonna clone myself and figure it out." And then goes away. And everyone was like, "Wait, what?"
It's like, yeah, I was dead.
Exactly. And they break up into 3 factions. One faction was like, we have to figure this out and kill whatever is going to come back. One faction is like, wait, I think it's his underlings, the Black Order or whatever. They're just like, what? Yeah. Thanos is coming back. We got to help him to get back.
We have to find him. Yeah.
And then and the middle one is just like, okay, we have to just figure out what the hell is going on. But again, bold. That just initial premise makes you like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen. And I think
it hooks you in.
To bring it all the way back to Fantastic Four, that's what we're missing. And I think where they hit on parts where we were like, oh, this is cool, they just didn't have that boldness where like when I got to the end of the movie, it was just kind of like, yay, a fun episode. And to be fair, when the Fantastic Four meets Galactus back in the 60s, they beat him by the ultimate nullifier. It's just a random weapon that Reed thinks up and fixed, that's how they beat them all. So there's not any good fanfare of how they beat him.
Right.
So with that being said, you could have been bold to figure it out. Like, I actually agree. I think if the movie would have ended with them losing, which kind of plays into our kind of like almost nihilism and negative, how we've been feeling a lot of this stuff.
I'm going to stop you there. Stakes. It creates stakes. Right. There's now something at stake.
Well, that in general... Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, it creates tension. It creates stakes. It creates something's at risk. You know what I mean? Like, yo, if he takes out the Earth, what's to stop him from taking out other Earths? Something like that. Something as simple as that.
And that's what you have to do, and is establish those stakes early on. And that's what I was mentioning to Josh. Reed came to this decision about pushing him into another reality, which we know is their low-hanging way of trying to set up the stuff that we're going to see for Secret Wars and Doomsday, and how these guys
now
end up in the 616, whatever the normal continuity is. So we see that they're doing that to set it up. But I was saying to Josh, why couldn't there have been a moment in which first we see the egg experiment, and then they test it on something else, and it almost goes bad, and because of this, they get a glimpse into 616. You know what I mean? Like, to establish something a little bit more, because I'm not buying that you would be convinced that because you moved an egg from one space and time to the other, you teleport that you can now teleport the entire Earth to another dimension and not turn everybody into goulash.
To be fair, Reed has that level of ego, which is the same as Stark, which is the same as Pym, which is the same as T'Challa. They all have that ego-ness of this.
But again,
you're right. They didn't
what are we talking about? We're talking about the comics, and I'm talking about trying to make it cinematic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's what was missing. It was the cinematic. You're right. They all are arrogant. That's how you got an Ultron and all this stuff. That makes sense. Because I'm like, bro, you just tested it on the egg and you sent the egg from one end of your desk to the other part of your lab. So now you're telling me that you safely believe that we can take the Earth and move it from this dimension to another dimension? What about the Earth that's already there? You know the laws of physics that two things can't occupy the same space at one time. So are we not going to just destroy both Earths in that sense?
So you're saying that's not plausible?
What I'm saying is, it's theoretical. I'm saying that
but it's horribly theoretical, yeah, because like you say, the same object cannot occupy two objects that are the same cannot occupy the same space, right?
And also, that's before you go on, I would just like to say that thank you, Time Cop, for teaching me this as a young lad when I was young.
And there's a lot of science stuff that really taught us. We didn't need to get it from the book. We had Time Cop and Terminator and all that stuff. Because Terminator taught us that
hot tub time machine, don't forget that.
We got all of these, and they all taught us, as we would learn, about how time travel actually could never work. But that's a whole nother story. They should have established it a little bit more. I felt that there was time wasted doing some of the things they did instead of just saying, okay, this is the project that Reed is now working on, right? This is his golden egg. Transportation between universes, tapping into the multiverse itself. That should have been his focus when Galactus pulls up. Then when you get later him, ding, let's just send him to another dimension.
Experiment. Yeah.
Because here's the other thing. You move the Earth. I'm assuming you got coordinates. Where you gonna move it? And you got to move it to a place with a yellow sun. Otherwise, everybody's going to die immediately. So, but you can't move it to 616 because guess what? The two Earths are going to do the dance macabre. And guess what's going to happen? Melancholia, bitches, is going to, the two planets are going to crash into each other eventually.
So to that credit, in the comics, go back to the comics again, that's kind of like how the quote unquote Illuminati gets created. It's Reed, it's Xavier, it's Tony Stark, it's T'Challa. Captain America's in it until he sees what they're doing and then they kick him out. Beast, and then and all of them, because this is what happens, right? They find out. Yeah, Submariner. So what they find out is the realities are colliding. And so as the realities collide, like you said, two places can't be the same thing. So they're saying two Earths come together and they make the decision to be like, well, we're going to save ours over anyone else's. And so they destroy the other Earth. And then Captain America was like, yo, we just killed 1 billion people. And then all the smart people are like, I mean,
so what was the alternative, Steve?
Let 2 billion die?
Yeah. So Xavier wipes his mind and he's out the Illuminati. But I like that at the very least, this group of Cabal was kind of like, yeah, this shit sucks, but we want to survive.
But we want to live.
We have the minds. We have the minds to figure that shit out.
The biological imperative.
Boom. And so I think that at least in that, it showed that those characters were like, okay, we're not saying we're correct, but we're doing that for our survival. And at least they show the stakes. And I think going back to, bringing it back to Fantastic Four, it had stakes. When they meet Galactus, I felt it. I was like, shit. Y'all ain't gonna win.
But there's a slowdown there. There's a slowdown there. Yeah. Then they get back, and nobody has the seriousness of a cosmic entity is on its way to destroy all life.
Right. There's no breakdown of society because the end of the world is nigh.
Only thing we know is there's a Galactus cult, and I'm like, okay, I get that, but. And that's what I'm saying. It was all weak world building. We got that montage at the beginning, but we should have been taking deeper into the grounded world so that we understand how it operates, how these people react to certain things. What has been the greatest challenge that the Fantastic has faced before Galactus? If it's Mole Man, I can see why they were so thinking that they would go up there and take out Galactus. Because, I mean, he down there living in Baxarania City. And, I'm just saying, like, everybody in his city gotta have like 3 or 4 diseases that they carry. And even if they're immune, they live with rats and it's under NYC. And no matter how much you scrub it, that shit ain't washing off. I'm sorry.
Yo, shout out to Mole Man.
And Bacteremia. Wow. Another issue that I had was the overuse of montages. I feel like it was a little heavy. I think it worked.
Lazy.
It worked for the first maybe one or two times that they did it, but by like the third montage or however many they got to, it was just kind of like, all right, man, if you're going to use that every time you need to move things forward, you're just being like D just said, you're being a little lazy.
Lazy.
You gotta flesh certain things out.
Build that world. Build that world.
And I actually like shout out to my man Stingray from Cobra Kai as Mole Man, but his name is Paul Walter Hauser. I have to call him Stingray because that's just what it is. But I like that funny part because if nothing else, in his small scenes when he had to, he basically was telling Reed like, "Yo, you need a favorite? You ask me. The world's ending." He's like, "I know, but still."
But that was peak Mole Man though.
I did like that. That is a character thing, but guess why it didn't pay off? Because how many times did we see them two in the scene interacting before that?
Exactly. There you go.
They didn't fight.
You didn't get to see that. Yeah,
we didn't see that at all. They told us that with exposition.
You could have had one quick action sequence where they take him down, even if it's just like people watching it on TV.
Just like we see at the beginning of Superman when he fights the fake Russian. It gives context to the world.
Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting to watch it with people that don't have no context to Fantastic Four and see what they pull out of it. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Because I mean, like, say for instance, I watched Superman the second time with my mom, and she read comics when she was younger. She watches, comic book movies, not on a regular basis, but the things that she took away from it and things that she liked were the things that we had said. Like, there's just a fun, it had a good feel to it and all that kind of stuff. So I think Marvel did do a good job for the non-Marvel person that doesn't keep up with those things. They maybe watched a couple movies here and there. I would be very surprised if someone came in this. I've never watched a Marvel movie. That's damn near impossible at this point. But maybe very little, maybe like less than 5 movies or something like that. They would probably watch this and have a good time. And I think that's that one part. But I think that's the thing that they did a good job of at least doing it. And same with Superman. It established a good thing. If you heard of the character, you know of the character, you watch this, you're going to have a good time.
And here's the reason why.
And for both, if I may jump in for a second, with both of them, I think one of the big scores is you didn't have to have seen a DC or in this case a Marvel movie prior to this in order to understand what was going on. Like, you didn't need 20 years of MCU, carnal knowledge to be able to sit down, watch the movie, enjoy it, and just have it be what it was. And I think if Marvel gets back to that, in a long time.
In a very long time. We're not exaggerating. I'm talking probably the first time since Phase 1.
Phase 2.
Yeah.
Phase 2. I get Phase 2. Yeah.
I would agree. I mean, I think you have... Yeah, I would say since about Phase 2 that you can let me just watch the movie as is and enjoy it, because every other thing context before, context whatsoever. And like, I think that's a good point where for Fantastic Four does succeed in that part where it's, again, if you have no context of anything, you don't know who Fantastic Four is, you maybe watched a couple Marvel movies, but not anything crazy, you could watch this and still come out of it with feeling in a good space. I think that's a good achievable thing for them. But going back to what you said, for a world building standpoint, it was just a lot of weakness because, again, we got to a point where this is a completely different universe and they didn't really establish a lot of those key things. I like the Easter eggs of when the police were coming in and they said villains' names. That as a comic book person, I know that, but again, other people don't know that. I did think that going back to the montages, there was a heavy overuse of the montages, and it sucks.
After they came back from Galactus, there shouldn't have been no more montages.
100%.
The fact that they used a montage to get us from the end of Act 2 into the start of Act 3, or at least around that time, that's when it started to get lazy, because you had a whole time right there to really dig in to show us who these people are, to show us who Ben is as a human being, because there is something, there's a sword of Damocles hanging over them, which is they have to do something about this. Otherwise, everybody is going to die.
And from Brooklyn, that's enough.
Well, and I also too, my thing was, I like that they looked shook when they came back, and I like that part of it. And even when they started talking about it, they're like,
yeah, that was good.
We had to figure it. But then the moment they talked about the kid, then it just fell apart. Because they could have been like, no, we didn't win, and we have to figure out he's coming in this amount of time, and we have to figure out what it is. And keeping he wants the kid as a secret could have actually helped a little bit later on to pay off later. And then I think by adding it right there, everyone was like, well, why don't you just give the kid up and just keep it moving? Like,
you're absolutely right,
because they could have utilized the tension differently if it was a secret that ended up slipping out. Slipping out like a press conference.
Well, when Shayla Ball could have came back, and it could have said, well, we gave your champions a chance to save your planet. All we ask is for the baby.
Yep.
And then there's a crowd witnessing this, and they're like, wait, so all you had to do is give up a kid? Lady.
Yeah, because the convention. Yeah. And then now they're coming after them because the conventional wisdom is that, look, it's a horrible thing, an evil thing to think. But I think about the bear analogy.
And
you can make another child. You cannot make a new planet and replace the planet. And again, look, it's a horrible thing. I'm not saying that I would make that decision, but it's a horrible thing. But it is a thing that was, if you're looking in that scenario, it will be considered. It will be considered.
And it makes Sue's speech in front of the Baxter Building that much more poignant.
Yes,
if that's the angle that they
because she's like, look, you don't see my child as a human right now. Let me introduce you to my child. Now, just because I don't want my kid to die does not mean I'm going to take him and let Galactus eat you. Right. We'll figure this out, or at least we'll try. That was still corny and lazy, because it wouldn't have been, not corny, lazy, because it should never be something. I mean, Hollywood. It's very Hollywood to have one speech turn the tide,
the crowd,
in that
all of society, right?
But it wasn't bad. I wanted to say that
it worked.
It wasn't bad.
It worked for what it was.
And I was going to say the same thing, where if that was the case, that would have helped fuel what we talked about before, that they lose. Like, they could have been like, you know what? He wants the kid. They don't want, or he doesn't want Earth. We're going to leave Earth. And then if they leave Earth and then he kills Earth and he destroys Earth anyways, oh shit, real stakes. And then because
they would they would exit through the gift shop. They ain't gonna just leave Earth. They're leaving the dimension. They're going somewhere else, because that is the only way they could put this legit distance between them and Galactus.
Right.
And that would have showed loss, and that would have shown like stakes and all that, because then them taking off, leaving Earth, and then Galactus destroying Earth because he's mad because he can't get the kid, that would have been even better.
But also because he's hungry.
Well, the gambit is, if we take Franklin and we leave not only Earth, not only, the solar system, but we leave this universe, we get a chance to, we're hoping that he'll just follow us, or at least it'll avert his attention away from Earth. And when it doesn't, that's the stake. Those are stakes.
Because they could think that would work. That they would lead him on a chase. He would chase them, and they would exit into another dimension.
Right.
And as they turn him back, they realize he is not chasing them. And as you see that portal closing, all you see is Galactus doing this.
Yeah.
Like a nice juicy apple.
He's not gonna eat it like that.
No, I know. I'm just saying that would have been a better. But then also to set that loss up, that's why I said the opening is a little wasted outside of that montage, because
it doesn't give you that stage.
You throw a villain in there that is not corny, but somebody that they can defeat, because it shows this is why the world trusts these guys, because they can come up against somebody who yields all this power and they can beat him. They can stop him. So there's a reason to believe that when they take flight and they go to space, that they can succeed until you learn that they can't. And that would have made all of that a lot more heavier when they come back and they realize we're punching not even in the same weight class, not even in the same arena. We're punching like our arms are not even too short to box with God. Our arms have been cut off and we cannot box with this dude at all.
We can't do nothing. Right.
Yes.
And I think
you didn't get that impression.
And I think you could have shown that with Silver Surfer coming down and whooping all their asses, and in a short time, because in that way you can kind of
make short work of them. And like, well, y'all should know, and like if you can't handle me, you can't handle my boss.
There's levels. There's levels to this, and
it reminds me of an. Oh, go ahead, Cam. My bad.
Well, I was gonna say, for me, it reminds me of, and me again, go comics all the time, but and we were talking about Ironheart recently, but one of the cool parts for Ironheart's character, and this is the part that a lot of the newer characters of Marvel suffers from, they have no real villains. They have no real like arch nemesis. They usually have a B or C tier someone or whatever. Riri's character definitely suffers from this from a lot of her books. There's some cool things in there, but in general, she doesn't really have an actual arch nemesis or someone that does something that makes her completely change how she looks at things. So while she's on the team of the champions, it's basically the Marvel's Teen Titans, they fight Thanos. And Thanos is annoyed. He's like, first of all, children, why are you even talking to me? And he makes quick work of all of them. Riri comes up to him in her, armor, like looks like kind of an Iron Man. And he literally makes fun of her. He's like, first of all, pretend Iron Man, why are you talking to me? Second of all, this suit is horrible. Shakes his hand and destroys the whole suit, throws it on the ground and be like, yo, come back to me when you're ready. And then leaves. But that gave that tension and that stake because that gave her the reason to make a new suit, to solve for a problem that's on a cosmic level, because all before that,
after that,
the threshold, she was only battling a bunch of C and B level people. She comes up to Thanos, who is literally a god, and he is like, "Why are you talking to me?" And I think there's no moment in Fantastic Four to kind of give that tier where even when Silver Surfer comes in, obviously Silver Surfer's a little bit better than them, but they don't show her being like massively different.
Well, she's not.
There's nothing that gives you that scale that you first get when they confront Galactus in the beginning. There's nothing that gives you that scale when he comes to Earth. I was telling Dee earlier today. I was like, the thing that comes to mind in terms of scale is when the Avengers take on Kang and Archangel's children, and a Celestial, and the gamut was to draw a Celestial to Earth and then use Thor's enchanted axe to take down the Celestial. And the Celestial shows up, and the Celestial's foot is the size of Earth. The whole thing with anytime a Celestial touches down on a planet, that planet is done for. And you see why. Like, if you stomp down on Earth with that size of foot, nothing's living. Nothing's going to survive.
Just like Tim, one thing about Eternals, I'll give it credit for, is the idea that if Tiamat had been allowed to fully wake up and be born, the Earth would be no more. Right. And that was the whole end. And the king of the Celestials knew that, and he just kept that information from the Eternals, that they were basically playing nursemaid or whatever to Tiamat, and once it was done, it was done. There will be no Earth after that.
And just the sheer size of the little bit of Tiamat that emerges from Earth and becomes Tiamat Island,
that shows you alone.
Whatever the hell they call it. Yeah.
Something like that.
It shows you, exactly. It shows you just how big this dude was about to be when he emerged from the planet. And you can see,
to mention they can siphon.
There's no way that a planet survives that kind of an emergence.
Not when his entire body has turned the tide for technology and advanced you just don't there is nothing that scales higher than that in most fictional realms. That is the Valar of Lord of the Ring of Tolkien's world. That is the Olympians of the Greek mythology. The Titans, you just don't get any greater or more grandiose than that. So, I think this was a good step in the direction going back to Fantastic Four. The things that I worry about are
the first step, huh?
Oh God, I can't believe I did that. Well, technically, it wouldn't be a first step because this is their 38th step. Or how many films have they made? They made quite a few. Yikes. But my point is, that was funny though. That was a good one. My point is though, they've taken a good step in the right direction. They got to get over themselves though, because I feel like they want to keep everything. And because of that, they still run into the third act problems. They still run into the same character and world development problems. And they still have convoluted ways of getting us where they want us to go. The Franklin thing is convoluted. If it's supposed to set up mutants, you didn't need to do that. Just do a soft reboot and call it that. And then bring them in via the Secret War thing. But the fact that we got to have I will never be excited about this Fox X-Men character crap coming into I will never praise that. I will never speak it as anything other than a gimmick and nostalgia, because there's no reason to do it. And as I said way back when, the smarter decision would have been trying to do a soft reboot, because this was working. I love that this didn't feel connected to anything that we had seen before. I love that they established them as the only superheroes in that world. I love that. But thinking about Thunderbolts,
it gave them the wiggle room. Yeah, it gave them the wiggle room to do other things. And I think you're right that it's not having they basically painted themselves into a corner, and they tried to dig themselves out of it with the quote unquote multiverse, and then they fucked that up. And so now, it at least Fantastic Four was in their own little situation so that they can have wiggle room to do stuff. But I think they've kind of, like you said, they painted themselves in the corner, and they don't know how to tell a fun story or even a coherent one that could add to the world building, but doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be connected to everything. Like it can be, but it doesn't need to be.
It just becomes overstuffed and convoluted, and then it confuses the layman, the people who are not that familiar with the mythology, because they're thinking about previously established things only in the cinematic universe. And then you add some of this other stuff that doesn't necessarily line up, or it's connecting to something that was happening 15 and 10 and 5 years ago. It's rather than
36 films back, that's too much.
No, yeah. Rather than just start fresh, start over. It's working for DC. It's working, and they needed to do it. So to be fair, they didn't have a choice. But
I'd be fine if they found an intelligent way to connect.
There is no
X-Men.
Not at this point.
I'm sure there. Well, no, not at this point. I guess.
There might be. I'm joking. There could.
I mean, the way that things are trending, but you can forecast pretty easily, and the way that things are trending, it probably isn't going to be satisfactory, especially if they're finishing up their nostalgia tour with Fox actors and characters. There is no bigger X-Men fan that exists than me, and if there is, it's not healthy. And
that's hilarious.
And I just, like you, I wouldn't say that I have no excitement. I'm mildly excited, but mildly excited only because I never dug the Fox characters at all, ever.
Yeah, and that's real, people. This guy was always against, as far as I've known him, he's never, the only one he's ever given a little bit praise for, three.
Three.
Okay, so really two, First Class and Low, three, because Deadpool. You said that, but now we're talking about moving past the X-Men and we're just dealing with mutants
in general.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing too, where it's like going back to like the Franklin situation, where it's like his character in the comics is literally all over the place. He's a mutant. He's not a mutant. He's all powerful. He's not powerful. You can literally he's whatever.
A cosmic being. He's a celestial being.
And the only governor on his powers is basically his limited imagination, it would seem.
Basically. So it's just like it's annoying. Yeah. And it's annoying because then he bounces around, right? And so like there is a good story where like Cyclops and the rest of the mutants is like, yo, Franklin's a mutant. He should be hanging out with us. And so he kind of goes and hangs out with them, and then that's kind of cool. But in general,
but there's also a stretch where I think they retcon it, and Xavier realizes that he's not a mutant.
Yeah, and he's like a celestial being.
So there's
blah, blah,
that.
Blah, blah. So it's like it's just too much, and so it was interesting. And I think going back to what we talked about before about Franklin, by not showing any small thing of what it could be to pay off later, it just was, oh, she's dead. She's alive again.
And her Josh eyes brought up a weird thing. Yeah, all of that. Josh pointed out something weird that I didn't think about at the time, which is, why is Reed putting his baby on top of the dead carcass of his mother? Like what? Yeah. What kind of emotion was he expecting? It was almost like he knew because the writer knew that she would open her eyes in that moment.
And there was no visual effect to see.
No visual effect. No energy coming from his hand.
I was gonna say
no change in his eye color, nothing.
So this is the part that I was gonna say too, is if you don't have your moment of, like you said, dead plant comes back alive, right? You don't have that moment. If we stay within the film, Galactus, scans him, says, "Oh, you're a little baby," and in the baby we see a CG situation of the embryo with the fucking like glowing power, whatever. That at the very least would give us something that, okay, this kid's a little bit different. If the kid was glowing through the whole movie, okay, we now know this kid is different. And so
every time they not paying attention, there's a flicker in his eye or something like that. The fact that everybody hung everything, and I get it, it's Reed, but Reed was so adamant about it, and he didn't understand his testing method, so we couldn't say if he was making a mistake or not. We don't know how his stuff works.
And I think the other thing too I was going to say is what I do like is, for folks like a Stark is another one, right? Stark hates magic. Why? Because it's fucking illogical and it just kind of does what it does.
And it doesn't have a rhyme and reason.
And so, but he's established that that's what it is, right? And in this time, Reed doesn't know anything about cosmic nothing. So this is something that's completely unknown to him. And there's no way for him to start to know it. He doesn't even Silver Surfer guiding around on her surfboard is a weird thing. But then the way they're approaching it is like, oh, this really hot chick that's all silver is talking to us. Not like, wait a minute, there's an alien being that just came down to Earth to told us that they're about to destroy the whole world. So there's a lot of
one that could breathe in the vacuum of space and move around in the vacuum of space like that. There's some things happening that the world isn't reacting to, and that's what makes it.
And so this makes me give a little bit credit to Fantastic Four 2 back in the day with Silver Surfer, Rise of the Silver Surfer, because there's moments in there that these questions are answered, or at the very least, there's an option to listen to it. Because now, that's I love the gravitas that Lawrence Fishburne gave to Silver Surfer, because you felt it. Like, this is not a human. This is not a mortal person. He is not of what our plane of existence. And the way Homie played him in terms of how he like the mannerisms, it just made that point where like this is a
shout out to Doug Jones. Shout out to Doug Jones always, because Doug Jones has been one of the greatest presence in a lot of fantasy fiction, science fiction, movie and TV since the late 80s, early 90s. 100%, and he got into it as because he had a unique look and he wanted to do it, and it just sort of and he's been in some of the most iconic stuff. He was the creature in in The Shape of Water. He was the fawn in Pan's Labyrinth. He's been in so many Abe Sapien and Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. He was Billy Butcher, I think, from Hocus Pocus. That was like his first. That was his first one of his first roles, and he's been in a lot of this stuff. So shout out to him.
And it gives that gravitas of like, this is someone that's not of our world. And I would say there's a lot of problems with that movie, but the way all the scenes with Silver Surfer definitely gave this gravitas. Where the scenes of Silver Surfer in this one, it was kind of like, oh, there's a hot chick that's silver that's like flying around or whatever. But I didn't feel that this was a cosmic being.
He also yoked
level
up
than everyone else.
He yoked up Johnny Storm too. He did. Because Johnny was chasing him, and he turned around and he stopped him by the neck and took him into space and then dropped him. And then he dropped him.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, there was no moment for me at that. Like, they kind of had that moment when
that you got a sense of how powerful she is, right?
Exactly.
Well, when she was destroying the things that she was doing, that
she flew a surfboard through them, though. Like, I wasn't.
Yes, but they were positioned across the world. She couldn't have got that
in a quick way
there without traveling the speed of sound. Yeah. I'm saying at the very least, that's something. I'm not saying it was the most impressive thing in the world. I'm just saying that it's something. It wasn't something nobody else did.
And so that's my meaning about the scale part, right? Like, when we get introduced to Galactus, the scale made you feel it. When you got introduced to Silver Surfer, it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And like, it didn't seem like this is an alien that we've never seen before, because they established that Fantastic Four have these otherworldly powers, because they were the first people to go into space. Right when they went to space, they got powers, but they never established that there was other planets. They didn't establish.
Did they even say what happened to give them the powers?
They just said gamma ray.
They did.
Yeah, they said gamma rays.
They were bombarded by cosmic rays, yada yada yada.
Yeah, and so and that's another thing where I think they kind of should have showed that part, even though it's been shown multiple times. Kind of like, it's basically the Spider-Man getting bit by a spider thing. Do we need to see it?
Right.
No. But
we need to see Bruce's parents shot again, right?
Yes, exactly. But in this instance, I think it might have made sense, because they would establish that there's cosmic something. And we don't really hear cosmic, the word, until they go to Galactus and they find out about cosmic power. Like, and I think I needed more from Silver Surfer, because like, I like that, at least that was another good part for Johnny, where he was like deciphering the language, blah, 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 blah. And then she kind of usually get a little bit of the backstory. Hey, I saved my planet because I was a scientist. I'm a herald. But they didn't say what. Like, again, I go back to she just got some stuff. She didn't get some cosmic stuff. She just got stuff.
It just dawned on me, they're going to use Franklin to reset the universe. Oh, God.
Ding, 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 ding. Hey, let's go.
Again, it's convoluted. It's convoluted where it doesn't need to be, and they would save them a lot of heartache and a lot of trouble if they would just do a cold reset.
There's no way that they don't use Franklin to do that.
Yep.
Well, we've been wrong before. We thought that Galactus,
because they hold.
We've been wrong before. We thought Galactus was going to destroy the world.
100%. I'm not saying that no, we haven't been wrong before. I'm saying no, that's what they're going to do, and they did it in the comics, and it made so. Okay, I'm gonna.
Let's not.
I want to touch on. Let's not something really.
Let's not do that, because people are listening, and this could be a potential spoiler for down the road.
So I will do this. We'll take this out. We'll do a separate aspect where we have and what we think Marvel's going to do going forward, and we can make that a separate pod where we connect a lot of those things. But for now, since we've already drone on about Fantastic Four for way longer than we thought we were going to. We can wrap that up and then come back to that. But I actually agree with you, Josh. I think there's a whole Secret Wars conversation that we can have. And there's
not even Secret Wars. I wasn't thinking Secret Wars. I was thinking Onslaught.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's even worse.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
Like,
Listen, people. I have no idea what they're talking about, and one day it'll come out, and they'll remind me of this conversation. And I'll remind them we're watching the movie.
Now you see why I'm depressed that they're going to use Franklin, because it's opening old wounds that just.
Yep. So before we go on a comic book spiral, I will just say thank you for listening.
Wait. We got to scale it from 1 to 10.
All right. D'Angelo, you're first. Make it happen.
I gave it a 7 out of 10 because I think that it was not a bad movie, despite these things I'm talking about, mostly writing choices, and just kind of not going as far as they could. But overall, I think it was a watchable movie. I plan to watch it again. I never looked at the runtime, which is my litmus test. On first screening, if I glance more than once at how much time is left, you're not doing your job, and I'm probably not gonna like this at the end of the day, or I'm gonna say something probably negative about it. But 7 out of 10 is my solid give it for it.
Nice, Josh.
And in classic fashion, D'Angelo's 7 is my 8. I give it an 8. I give it a low 8, but an 8. I think it did what it was supposed. I think it was, at the end of the day, quibbles or not, it was true to the essence of the characters and the comic book, for the most part, and that can't be understated. They didn't reinvent the wheel to the point where it didn't feel like you were watching a fantastic, it didn't feel like it didn't get reinvented to the point where you didn't feel like you were watching the Fantastic Four. The actors did better than well above passable jobs for the most part with their characters. And like I said, it felt like all of the classic Fantastic Four, like the tentpole Fantastic Four books and arcs that you're familiar with if you read the comics. It pretty much lands the plane on that particular note, and that is more than half the battle, in my opinion. Despite the quibbles that we had and wound up talking about for a whole hour. We did another Sinners. We talked about the positives for like a half an hour, and then spent an hour on the goddamn negatives. And
honestly, I don't think it was the negatives. I think it was more just we could see the things that weren't completely working. Because I don't think there was some bad stuff, like you said, negative, Josh. But I think for the most part, it was just like legitimate things that they could have done differently, and probably would have worked a little bit more, and just elevated the film from a 7 on my part to at least a 7.5.
Yeah, so I will actually give it a 7.5.
Boy.
And I give that I'm gonna give it a 7.5, and the reason why is because Galactus was awesome and looked amazing, and they did a way better job than I thought they were gonna do. It looked great from a design standpoint. Everything it wasn't a cloud.
Aside from there.
Yep,
it wasn't a cloud, but one shot of the silhouette of his helmet.
Yes.
In the fire, in the flames.
Yep. So that part was dope. It was really, really cool. I would say 7.5. I definitely want to see it again because I want to see some aspects of it.
Yes.
I give it a negative 0.5 because of the bad CG baby at the end. That shit just really annoyed me. I can't. It just annoyed me so much.
Well, I took off a whole half point for the rock beard, so it would have been. It might have been 7.5.
Hell yeah!
But the rock beard, I knocked the whole half point just because at the end of the day, I could not answer the question why. Why is it on his face?
I knocked off the whole point for the beard. It annoyed me so much. I'm texting D as I'm watching it. I'm like, oh God, the beard. But
I had said to him before, I was like, the beard sucks.
We get to the end, and he still got the beard. I'm like, yo, and I texted in all caps, why does he still have this stupid beard?
I was hoping when Galactus threw him in space, it would have froze up really quick, and then when Johnny grabbed him, it would just cracked and just fell off, and that would have paid off having the beard.
But
so
that was
overall,
yeah, clobbering time moment. I love that.
Yeah. Clobbering time was good. And so again, is this enjoyable? Yes. Should you go watch it? Yes. Are you gonna have a good time? Yes. We are nerds. We like to quibble. That's what we like to do.
And we dissect.
And we dissect. So enjoy it. Always go watch it first, and then come back to our quibbles. And that way you can kind of disagree with us or agree with this. Again, we still get Sinners heat, which is hilarious, by the way, because it just
we welcome it.
But we welcome it so much more. But as always, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, all the good things.
And subscribe. You jerks.
Tell a friend. Oh, side note,
and comment. Tell an enemy.
Yeah, leave a comment on the Spotify's and the YouTubes, especially if you don't like what we just said, because that always helps too. So we're gonna get better about talking about that earlier instead of the end. But if you got to this far,
and do not pick a fight you cannot finish. So think about your comments before you comment to the professor. Okay,
copy that.
Yes, we will do we'll definitely do a question and answer streaming at some point. We're working on that. But yeah, thanks for listening. Like I said, you got this far. You for some reason you still like us, so we appreciate that. And we out.
Later.
It's clobbering time.
Say it, man.